The old Victorian house stood at the end of Maple Street, a grand yet ominous structure that had been abandoned for years. When Lily and James Andrews received a letter informing them that Lily's great aunt had left the house to her, they were thrilled. Moving from their cramped apartment in the city to a sprawling estate seemed like a dream come true. They packed up their belongings and headed to the new home, unaware of the terror that awaited them. As they pulled into the driveway, Lily felt a chill run down her spine. The house was enormous, with ivy crawling up the walls and a garden that had long been overtaken by weeds. But what struck her the most were the windows, each one framed by an ornate mirror reflecting the gloomy sky above. Well, it's certainly unique, James said, trying to sound optimistic as he noticed the same thing. Lily forced a smile. It's going to be beautiful once we fix it up. They entered the house, the heavy front door squeaking loudly as it opened. The interior was just as grand as the exterior, with high ceilings, intricate woodwork, and a sweeping staircase. But it was also covered in dust and cobwebs, the air thick with the scent of decay. As they explored, they noticed that every room had at least one large mirror. Some were mounted on the walls, while others stood on the floor or were attached to furniture. The mirrors were all different shapes and sizes, some with ornate gold frames, others plain and simple. Your great aunt must have really loved mirrors, James joked. Lily nodded, but something about the mirrors unsettled her, Treya. Sugi, they seemed too clean, too polished, as if someone had been taking care of them, even though the rest of the house was
That night,
neglected. After a long day of cleaning and unpacking, Lily and James settled into the new bedroom. A massive mirror hung on the wall opposite their bed, reflecting the entire room. It made Lily feel uneasy, but she didn't say anything, not wanting to spoil their first night in the house. As they drifted off to sleep, the house was silent, except for the occasional creak of the old wood. But in the middle of the night, Lily was startled awake by a noise, a faint tapping sound. She sat up in bed, her eyes scanning the dark room. The tapping continued, rhythmic and persistent. James, did you hear that? She whispered, shaking him awake. James groggily opened his eyes. Hear what? That tapping sound. They both listened, but the noise had stopped. James sighed and turned over. It's an old house, Lil, probably just settling. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She glanced at the mirror across from the bed. For a moment, she thought she saw something move in the reflection, a shadow darting across the glass. She blinked, but the mirror only reflected the room empty and still. The next few days passed uneventfully as they continued to work on the house. But Lily couldn't get the mirrors out of her mind. Every time she passed one, she felt compelled to look into it, as if something was drawing her in. And each time she had the unsettling sensation that something was watching her from the other side. One afternoon, while dusting the large mirror in the hallway, Lily noticed something strange. The reflection of the hallway in the mirror was perfect, except for one detail. There was a figure standing at the far end of the hall. It was faint, like a shadow, but unmistakably human. Lily spun around, her heart racing. The hallway behind her was empty. She turned back to the mirror, but the figure was gone. Shaken, Lily called James, who was working in the garden. James! There's something wrong with these mirrors, she said, her voice trembling. James frowned. What do you mean? I just saw something, someone in the mirror, but when I turned it around, there was nothing there. James looked concerned but skeptical. Lily, you've been working too hard. Maybe you're just tired. This house is old. It's bound to play tricks on your mind. But Lily knew what she had seen. She insisted they cover the mirrors, at least temporarily. James agreed, if only to ease her mind. They draped sheets of every mirror in the house, hoping it would put an end to the strange occurrences. That night, the tapping sound returned, louder and more insistent. Lily woke to find James sitting up in bed, staring at the covered mirror across the room. Do you hear that? He asked, his voice tight with fear. Lily nodded, her heart pounding. The tapping grew louder, and then suddenly the sheet covering the mirror fell to the floor. The mirror stood bare, reflecting the room. But this time, the reflection was different. The room in the mirror was darker, the shadows deeper, and in the center of the reflection stood a figure, a woman, her face obscured by long dark hair, wearing a tattered dress. Lily gasped, gripping James's arm. Do you see her? James nodded, his face pale. Who who is that? The woman in the mirror slowly raised her head, revealing hollow, empty eyes. She opened her mouth as if to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, the tapping grew louder, more frantic. Suddenly, the woman lunged forward, her hands pressing against the inside of the mirror as if trying to break through. The glass began to crack, thin lines ebbing out from where her hands touched. Lily and James scrambled out of bed, backing away from the mirror. Just as the glass seemed ready to shatter, the woman vanished. The room fell silent, the mirror once again reflecting the ordinary bedroom. The next morning, Lily and James decided they couldn't stay in the house any longer. They packed their belongings in haste, avoiding looking into any of the mirrors. The house seemed to resist their departure, the doors creaked, and the floorboards groaned as if the house itself was alive. As they loaded the last of their things into the car, Lily glanced back at the house one final time. In the window of the master bedroom, she saw the figure of the woman staring at them with those hollow eyes. They drove away, leaving the house and its haunted mirrors behind. But Lily knew the image of the woman in the mirror would stay with her forever. And somewhere, deep within the mirrors of the old house, the woman waited, tapping, always tapping, for